Hello and welcome back again to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. This time we've got more of a casual kind of discussion, talk about the future of the game, what's coming over the next months. Obviously now with Gamescom and PAX finished, we have loads of footage to look through. We may end up learning more about the weapons and other details through what footage we do have and, real careful analysis. But what is next in terms of beyond that? When are they going to show us more? Well, it's a lot sooner than you might think, because later this month, towards the end of September, between the 26th and 29th, we have the Tokyo Game Show. And not only is Capcom confirmed to be there, but Wilds is specifically there and they have a playable demo at that event. Will it be different to the one that we had at Gamescom and PAX? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say no, probably not. Probably it's going to be the exact same build. Having said that, that's going to be a full month after Gamescom, where they did all of these big reveals recently. Is that long enough to release anything new? I think it's possible, but yeah, just unlikely. But that's not it. In the next month, towards the end of October, we have the Gamescom Asia in Singapore, which is between October 17th to the 20th. And right after that, literally immediately, we have the Paris event, which is at the 23rd to the 27th. Both of these should expect, again, a playable demo. But will those be different to the one that we saw at Gamescom and PAX? Again, I'm just not thinking so. On the bright side, with all of these opportunities, I expect more press to be at these events and more information to come out. Something I would love to see generally is like the in-game hunter notes and controls for every weapon. We could really scour the details with that kind of information. Not every weapon had a lot of good showings or footage or anything to really look at. So more opportunities for that is going to be a good thing for new information, even if they don't announce anything at these events. But hopefully they will use it as an excuse. 2 months after Gamescom and PAX, the first big announcements we've had with the gameplay, at the end of October at Gamescom Asia and then the Paris event, there's again an opportunity for those. But where I expect fully some absolutely major new information, announcements, details, is of course going to be at the end of the year, the Game Awards, which is listed for December 12th, relatively early December. That's pretty nice. A good 4 months after our big thing at Gamescom and PAX. I think that's the right timeline. And of course, at the Game Awards, it's a massive event. There's loads of eyes on it. People do big announcements and reveals at this kind of thing all the time. If there was ever a time for not only a release date announcement and new information, but also maybe finally a demo announcement to follow. So if they do these big announcements at the Game Awards, again, I really expect this. What kind of announcements are we hoping for? Obviously, the main thing is the release date. All we know still right now as I make this video is that the game is coming in 2025 for PlayStation 5, Xbox and Steam, but when is the big question? Is it going to be summer or even later? I think it's not possible, or it's very unlikely that it's going to come at the start of the year, because if it was, I think we definitely would have had at least a demo announcement and timeline for that already. So for me, I just think mid 2025 is the earliest we can hope for, but obviously I have no idea. In regards to the demo, is that even real? Well, I think very likely, but there's no confirmation. They've always done these demos for their games. Usually the format is an easy hunt, a harder hunt, and then the hardest hunt. And what's super interesting about these demos is that you can fight the flagship, the new flagship of whatever game it is, in them. I remember for GU fighting Valstrax, obviously we had Magnum Malo for the Rise demo. And yet here we are with Wilds, and we don't even know what the flagship is right now, which is an interesting topic. But to stay on point for the demo, I do think it's incredibly likely. It would be a huge surprise and really out of the norm if they didn't do a demo for Wild. So I think we can very much lean on the expectation for that. For the Rise demo, the medium level boss was Mizutsune, for example. So a medium level monster of that kind of level. Could that be, say, Ray Dao is how I would imagine that. Maybe it'd be one of the apex monsters of a different locale that we've not seen yet. And then for the third mission, it would definitely be a hard situation. Like I say in the past, it's literally been the flagship monster, but under incredible restraints. I remember that it was a short timer on the Magnum Malo mission in the Rise demo. We had a really terrible set of gear and very limited, if not no carts available as far as I recall. Those are some of the funnest hunts that I've done in Monster Hunter, by the way. So I thoroughly recommend whatever they do, whatever the hardest mission is, get involved with it and try and beat it. It's going to be tough. It's really fun. But what is that monster going to be? If it's the flagship, why do we not know the flagship yet? Therefore, if they do not announce anything at, say, Tokyo Game Show or Gamescom Asia or Paris, and they're going to do it at the Game Awards, then by that point, we're 100% going to hear about what the flagship is and finally see it. Now, if you weren't aware, at the PAX kind of panel, we had a talk about the flagship briefly by Ryozo. He took a moment to kind of reference it. Right now, there's a lot of fan theory that could it be the four, quote unquote, 4 apexes in each locale? We're assuming there's going to be 4 locale. We don't know. What if they're going to do 4 flagships in one again, kind of like the Fated 4 and all that? It could be the 4 apexes. Therefore, Raidao would be considered one of the flagships if that's what they were doing. Ryozo's quote on this when talking about Raidao is exactly these words. There's a different flagship monster, so keep an eye out for further information. So you could take that in multiple ways. You could take that as Raidao is not the flagship monster, it is a different monster that's the flagship. But his wording was, there's a different flagship monster. Although remember, we were getting this from a translator, so he may not have even said those specific words, that's the difficult thing. But if he really did say, there's a different flagship monster, that could also be taken as, yeah, Raidao is one of the flagships, but there's more than one. It's easy to twist words to whatever you want, right? But I think it leaves the potential there at least. We're definitely not taking anything as concrete. Now, something we've not seen anything of in this whole thing is returning monsters. All we've seen is new monsters, and honestly, they've been phenomenal. They fit into this new mechanically improved world that is Wilds so well, and it's something, you know, I've talked with other creators about this. Wilds really looks and feels so similar immediately to Worlds. It's like coming back to Worlds with slightly improved stuff, but it's the subtle details that are massively improved. The mechanics, it's the weather system, all the little details, the way the grass burns, the way you interact with the world, and the monsters and their really interesting mechanics. Look at the balahara whole Leviathan model. They really struggled with that in Worlds and couldn't get it working. And here it is in Wilds, just working not only well, but really cool. The way the balahara moves through the sand, the way that it grapples around other monsters, worming and constricting on them. If it goes through terrain and goes over rocks and stuff, it also snakes around that. And then you can have interactions with the environment, like pulling them down from these perches. There is no way that something that unique that they put that much dev time into isn't going to be used in multiple ways with different monsters. For example, it could be returning monsters, other Leviathans that get to use these mechanics and add a lot to them because of that. But not just that. There's the new wounds mechanic, right? The way you attack parts of a monster and open these wounds, you can attack them for extra damage and use your focus strike attacks against them. Most monsters that we've seen, you know, you do that, you break the wound, you expend it, now the wound's closed, and that's it for that wound. Well, with the doshaguma, the big angry bear, basically when it enrages, it reopens all of those closed wounds, allowing you to actually use them again. That is a unique and interesting mechanic that, again, we didn't see with the other monsters, but there's no way they're not going to reuse that for other monsters, and returning monsters in particular, it could use that again. I talked to Josh about that and he was like, yeah, I could see something like that with Devil Joe. And I figured, you know, monsters that enrage generally, that would work on. So that's something I'm personally interested to see. The massively mechanically updated monsters that we've seen, all these new monsters, how are they going to match that for returning monsters to bring them forward and basically make them feel like they fit with the new Wilds monsters we have? On top of that though, I do hope that we get to see a new locale. I'm sure we're going to see one, as well as whatever the weather system there is going to be. The sand tide is a really interesting mechanic, the way that it changes the colors, the way that it causes the RNG lightning strikes, the way that it physically holds space and moves across the locale, letting you leave that area rather than it affecting the whole map at once, no matter where you are. Again, the technology in Wilds is seriously impressive. That's what's next gen about it. So we'll see. That's what's coming basically next. Tokyo Game Show at the end of September, Gamescom Asia and Paris at the end of October, and then we have the Game Awards coming on December 11th, where I expect the big info to come. It is sad that we didn't get more out of PAX. The fact that they did a panel instead of what they did with the dev streams in Gamescom was exciting, but not a lot came out from that. So in the community right now, there's just general discussion about what they're happy to see and what they don't really want to see more of. A topic that I talked with Rurik bowgun on is the idea of the seikret actually being a bit too strong for your healing and sharpening and using consumables in general, because you're able to just kind of jump on the seikret, and while it moves around, the monster can't keep track of you while you're doing something at the same time, like sharpening and so on. You could do the same thing on the palamute and rise though. Well, I actually saw a post by the Reddit user Marlix on this, showcasing old gen hunters doing something not too dissimilar, just in a different way. Basically, they're in a fight, it's going wrong, and they just exit the zone. There's a loading screen, you're in a new place, the monster's not there, and so you take the time to heal up and do the full heal animation, sharpen, and then turn back and go back into the zone where the monster is. Hopping on your seikret, or palamute and rise, and healing and stuff, it's just less cutting out of the combat. You're still there, you're still engaging with the fight, but is it that much different? So I think Marlix here made a really good point with this clip. Another big discussion on the Reddit currently around Wilds is a topic posted by the Reddit user Mr. Wads, asking the community at large what they don't want to see in Wilds. Now, there were a lot of things talked about, obviously, but I just want to reference the ones that were most popular. Probably the number one thing is the avoiding of required setup mechanics again, and I think this is a topic that is understandable, but not a big concern. Obviously, they're talking about the clutch claw that was in Iceborne. You would use it against the target, generating these wounds that now lead to better DPS. Ultimately, optimal DPS. It means no matter what weapon you're playing, you need to first clutch claw the monster, set up a wound, and then attack the wound for optimal DPS. And it was kind of quote unquote forced upon you because it's so good. You're literally playing worse or dealing a lot less damage by not doing that. But I think they learned their lesson from Iceborne. We didn't quite see anything like that in Rise, and we've not seen anything like that in Wilds. On the other hand, a lot of people were listing the spirit birds from Rise as that kind of setup mechanic they don't want back. Basically, you run around, you pick up the different coloured spirit birds, you get health and stamina and other stuff, and it's not a big deal in most of the game, to be honest. Like, if you pick up the ones that you run by, you're fine. But it's also true that in the true endgame, like post all the updates finished, and you're doing the really hard high-level investigations and special investigations they left you with, that was balanced seemingly around having max stats, like a hugely increased health pool, so you're not getting one shot. That is not fun, and it does mean you have to go collect them. We know that spirit birds aren't a thing in Wilds, so we'd have to worry about that again, but it is a trend of like annoying setup stuff that basically we're hoping not to see again. One thing that definitely is going to come back, at least that's what I predict, that people don't want to see, is the character edit vouchers. Basically, microtransactions on a feature that previously wouldn't have been a microtransaction. I think there's nothing we can really do about that. They're going to let you make your character, and then based on the history of the games, they might give you one free edit again. But after that, it'll be a paid mechanic. They just do this kind of stuff in these games these days. And I am definitely not for it. I don't like it at all. But at the same time, you should expect it this time for Wilds. Another topic was mantles. We know that the ghillie mantle is back, and it's incredibly used to use sneak attacks and you attack on monsters. So the big thing is, if ghillie's back, does that mean other mantles are back too? People are dreading the return of Tempora Mantle because you pop it on and then you no longer play the game, you just attack the monster and brain off evade because it happens automatically. We don't want to see that again. A lot of people really felt like it was too strong and kind of ruined the flow of gameplay. But in my opinion, other mantles were cool. Like, Rocksteady had the great perks of being able to just ignore what the monster's doing to get your attack off, but the huge dangerous side is you're not being knocked down, so you're taking massive ticks of damage that are otherwise impossible, to the point where you could instant cart using Rocksteady. I like that. It's good balancing. They could do some cool stuff with new mantles, but I also don't want to see a return of something like Temporal. Ghillie works for specific purposes and is mostly not used most of the time. That's the kind of mantle system I would like to see. Though, you know, based on us only seeing Ghillie, what if the only mantle that exists is the Ghillie mantle? I think people would be fine with that. But yeah, I want to ask you guys, what would you like to see improved or added? And specifically, what would you like to not see again this time in Wilds? But yeah, that's just been my discussion on what's next for the game in terms of information and announcements, what's coming in terms of events and when. I've made my predictions and had a chat about it all, so yeah, let me know what you think. We'll obviously be covering every bit of information as it comes, but until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice. to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.